ponder the question, what if?
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of us covering What If. This one's going to be about the 7th episode of What If. What if Hela found the 10 rings? But welcome back, Stanford.
Hey, thanks.
So before we get into talking about this episode from today, what did you think about yesterday's What If Cohorte reshaped the world?
I loved it. You know, when it first started, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and also this is our, first time I've ever seen Cohorte, right? Is that saying that right? But wow, knockout episode for me. I thought the animation was spectacular. It's such an interesting story idea. Love that it was all done, basically in the native tongue, of everybody, and super cool. I hope we get to see more of her. And of everybody, really. It was great.
Yeah, I agree. So this episode today was What If Hela Found the 10 Rings? And this one is kind of essentially like if you remixed Thor Ragnarok with Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings.
Yes.
For you, what stood out as far as like within this episode, and then we'll kind of break it down a little bit more.
Well, number one, I was so stoked that it was Cate Blanchett. It was like, oh my gosh, it's Cate Blanchett. And Hell is such an interesting character. This was all just very surprising, I guess, for me. I wasn't quite sure what direction any of this was going to go. I guess that's the point. But it was an interesting journey. And again, I just think the animation has been so great. I think that the backgrounds in particular have just been just beautiful. And so, I just loved everything they did there in medieval China. And again, just super interesting. I was kind of hoping in the back of my like, somehow are they going to jump the future and that Shang-Chi can show up? But anyway, he didn't. But maybe later.
Although, well, because of this version of this universe, I don't think Shang-Chi will exist.
That's a good point.
Because Wenwu didn't find... Wenwu is now with another Mrs. So,
yep.
Yeah. So in that universe, Shang-Chi and his sister, they do not exist.
They don't exist. Yep.
Well, but I guess at least maybe in that universe, his dad is actually a good dude. Maybe.
Right. Who knows?
So I don't know. We'll see. Well, actually, probably we won't see unless they do a follow-up. Because, like the Watcher said, I don't usually do sequels.
Yes. The Watcher.
Yeah. Tim, who's in the live chat, said that it had a little bit of the first Thor in it too. Yeah, it's like but you take out Thor's hammer, and it's Hela's crown instead. Mm-hmm. What did you think of that? Like it still having kind of some of that stuff from the first Thor movie, but instead of the hammer, it's her crown, and it's essentially like the same conceit where it's like she's become worthy of her role and title again to be able to wear her crown. What did you think of that? Like,
kind fascinating, Mark. I didn't quite know, what direction it was going to go, and then, as I already said, but it was so interesting that they turned the crown into basically the hammer, but she just took, again, I just didn't expect her to really become like a force for good, and I thought she was going to kind of keep in her evil ways and just be, naughty and mischievous, and death, but cool. Thought that was cool.
Yeah. And so so the main like log line for the episode was Hela, stripped of her powers and banished to Earth, comes across a new source of power, the 10 Rings. So, and like you said, Cate Blanchett came back and reprised the role of Hela here. Idris Elba also as Helmdall.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so that was cool. Other than that, those are the only two like live action actors reprising the roles in here. I thought they did a pretty good job, in here. And then Jeff Bergman did the voice of Odin, which I think he's done Odin's voice throughout, like anytime Odin shows up. But
yeah,
I thought he did a pretty good job with sounding like pretty similar to Anthony Hopkins. So
I think he does a good job too.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good there. And then the voice of, I'm trying to find it, who was who was Zhu Wenwu, the Mandarin, is Fyodor Chin. I thought he did a pretty good job there too, filling in for Tony Leung in the role too. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I also liked there was this like flashback we kind of got that reminded me a little bit of in the Loki series when we see like the younger Sylvie in that as she gets taken. So we see like the younger Hela in this, and from I think I remember the name of the dog. It's Fenrir, right? Her dog is Fenrir.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Tim, who's watching in the chat, probably remembers.
Tim will know, right? Tim's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is that? But yeah, I mean, I liked that kind of whole flashback there. Kind of you were seeing like how this older version of Odin was essentially taming Hela, or essentially manipulating her to be who she was. And had there been other options for her, maybe like in the like the sacred timeline version of events, maybe she could have I flipped the coin there, like with enough of this different she basically went through like the same course of events that Shang-Chi does in the Shang-Chi movie, where like she finds the Talo and then basically goes through like oh, can I just do this? I need to get this done. More, kind of like Luke on Dagobah with Yoda. He needs to get the training done and get out of there so he can go save his friends. It's essentially that conceit where she's like, oh, I need to get out of here so I can go take out my dad. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And they have like these little things they seed throughout there too, where she's like, what about instead of flower petals, it was knives? And what if the knives were on fire? And then cut to later in the episode, she's like, oh, fire knives. And she starts doing those. So I thought that was a nice little mix there with that. And I liked that whole conceit. And then, like you said, she becomes like a force for good. So that was one of the things I liked there at the end. She essentially becomes Hela the White.
Yeah, she's Hela the White. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. She got new duds, and her crown thing, is kind of illuminated, and it's doesn't look so scary, and yeah.
So like outside of that, was there like any other sequences like in here during the course of the episode that really stuck out to you? Like you're like, oh, this is what made the episode for me.
Well, Mark, one of the things that has impressed me throughout this season 2. And again, with this Hela and the Ten Rings episode, is that it's serious and fast moving, but they also have some really good humor, and I've really appreciated the tone generally of all of these. But I thought that it was really strong, because this could have been like a really heavy episode, but instead it was just action packed and interesting, and there was some good humor, and also just some really good action and drama. So that's what really stood out for me. And again, so surprised that that's the direction they took with Hela, that she became Hela the White.
Yeah. Or speaking of Asgardians, they got Sylvie over here.
Sylvie's chilling.
Tim was saying I called her Hela the White, but since she was the goddess of death in our universe, she's the goddess of life now.
Yeah.
So, and I cut to like the end of this episode. I thought that was interesting that her and Wenwu are teamed up on doing all of what Odin did too. But like we see there at the end, like she's going to essentially take out Thanos.
They're taking out Thanos,
who made it far enough to get to not baby Gamora, but like little Gamora that we see in the flashbacks there. So what did you think of that? Like that whole kind of their, I guess, expedition or journey that they're going on by the end of this.
Well, I was surprising in a happy way, and not wanting to be dumb or anything, but I'd take another episode of this storyline. You know, if they wanted to do it for either a season 3 or maybe somehow that particular course of events is going to get intertwined with something else in the next 2 episodes. You know, we don't know, but I liked it. I thought it was very, again, like, what?
Yeah.
You know, take on Thanos.
Yeah, the other thing I liked too is that she interacted with Morris here in this episode
Yes.
too. Again, so I got to see Morris again. Although what was funny is that this is an animated thing, and Morris doesn't. I don't think Morris talked at any or made sounds at any point, which I thought was funny because D. Bradley Baker is a prolific voice actor. I mean,
Yeah.
Barry the Platypus.
Yeah.
He's all of the clones in the Clone Wars. Tim says Arseface, who not to be confused with Arseface from the comics Preacher, who is a character in that too. But yeah, like I liked that whole like jokes that she was doing with Morris too, with not knowing which side was his face and which side was his butt, and like
It's funny. Yeah, I agree. It was so fun to see just something unexpected, from the Shang-Chi movie.
Yeah, and she also sees the Great Protector when she enters Tylo too. Now, that was one thing I thought like maybe that would come back within this episode, or that I forget what the name of. Do you remember like what Tony Leung's like when he was trying to, he essentially lets out like the darkness outside of like the gate that's being held.
Yeah,
I'm assuming I don't remember if like timeline wise, like if this is before or after like when that would have been held back behind that.
Right.
And they don't mention anything about it in the episode, so maybe it's before all of that would have happened.
Yeah.
Because that was one question I had too, but it's kind of cool to see timeline wise, essentially, I guess, like where we saw Wenwu in the Shang-Chi movie at the beginning of that, like when he's essentially taking on creating his empire in China there, and how that aligns with the like where Hela and Odin were like on their conquest within that time period now too.
Yeah.
So like now if you go back and you were to watch Thor Ragnarok and you get like that expedition backstory to her and Odin's blood-soaked conquest there, and then you go back and you watch Shang-Chi, you can be like, oh, okay, these kind of happen around the same time. So that will, and I don't even know if that's in the like the official MCU timeline book that they just put out. I know our friend Dakota over at Geek Critique is who I trust like his timeline with all that stuff too. I know that book kind of broke him because of with some of the discrepancies in there, but I always find that stuff like fascinating to like find out like where timeline wise where a lot of this stuff takes place. And then it's even like more sporadic and broken up when you go into like these alternate like what if events.
Yeah.
What could be happening here, like because then that throws it all off at that point. So, which would then assume, although we don't know like how long Thanos is doing whatever he's doing and like how technically old Gamora is for like how old like her race of aliens live, so like what the equivalent of like what she would be to like Star-Lord when they meet.
Yeah.
So that scene that we see with like Wenwu and Hela at the end, that could be much later on down the line, or maybe that's like a week later. I don't know. So,
exactly, we don't know, but it's sure fun to think about.
Yeah. Now in here too, was there anything like did you have any nitpicks or anything that happened in this episode at all? I know for me, I don't know, like maybe I felt the remixing of stuff in this one a little bit more than I did in other episodes, which I still enjoyed the episode, but I could really feel like, oh, this is from Thor Ragnarok, this is from Shang-Chi. Now it's just laid out differently with a different character going through it, because it was a lot of the same beats from each of those things.
Yes.
Just now with Hela experiencing them, did that, and I mean I still enjoyed it overall, but I don't know if I'm explaining it the right way, but like I could feel that a lot more in this one than I could in other episodes, which I think it still worked, but I just felt it more.
Yeah.
I don't know. But what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, it was so clear, what was going on, as far as just kind of the homage or the mimicking, right, of what was happening in those other movies. But I guess it didn't really have an effect on me, because it was also seemed like, even though this one was maybe more obvious than others, but it seemed very much like what was going on with the Cap and the Hydro Buster episode, right? Excuse me, the Hydro Stomper. I'm thinking of Hulkbuster. The Hydro Stomper. Sorry. But you know how that was pretty obvious with with the Winter Soldier. What they were doing with that. But anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, and like the other thing I did like in here too is Tim was in the chat also kind of pointed out it was interesting to see the Ten Rings compared to the Asgardian.
Yeah.
Tech and magic there too. So it was cool to see that like back and forth between those.
Yes.
And how Odin like could stand up against that. And there's like that great shot basically of just like the Ten Rings to like his face,
just punching him. Yeah.
Yeah. And
taking him out. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and by like the end of the episode too, like he just expects Hela to take him out, but she's like, "No, my heart grew 3 sizes today."
I know.
So
just like Tim saying, I think we all were surprised.
Yeah, and like we did say, like even though there was like it was familiar beats to it, like you're saying, I didn't expect her to ultimately end up.
No, I didn't expect it at all.
Now I'm good.
Yeah.
Now I'm a force for good. Yeah. What if Hela saved Christmas? Which I guess by that way maybe she would, because if she wanted to take out Thanos there at that point in time,
absolutely
none of that other stuff after that would happen either.
Awesome.
So what if Hela saved half the universe is basically what that is. What if Wenwu saved half the universe?
Yeah.
Or what if Shang-Chi didn't exist? That's the one sad thing about this
I know.
Is that like you know that doesn't happen now.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, and my one question too is, so we know like within this at this point, Odin already with Frigga, and Hela is Frigga's daughter, or is Frigga only the mother of Thor?
Mark,
and then the adoptive mother of
the way I understood it, and I'm glad Tim's here. Maybe Tim can help us too. Frigga, I think Frigga's in the picture, but I don't think Frigga is Hela's mother.
Okay,
that's at least I can't remember the exact quote, but that was new to me. Like, oh, okay, I didn't quite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Frigga is Odin's new girlfriend, according to Hela.
Yeah, that's what she's. Yeah.
Yeah, because we know how like the gods of old like to, get around.
Well, they're busy,
Yeah, or they liked to get busy.
Yeah, you just look at Greek and Roman mythology, right? Yeah.
Hela's probably like friggin' Frigga. So, yeah, I mean that's as we're wrapping up on this one, that's a lot of what I could think of to say or really mention about this one, and other than remixing was there, it was a little bit more noticeable, but we still enjoyed it and were surprised by the ending. It's sad that Shang-Chi won't exist in that universe.
Yeah.
It was cool to see Morris again, and Hela is now Gandalf the White.
Yeah, and anytime Heimdall shows up too, it's a thumbs up for me. I like how,
yeah, and like for seemingly all accounts for I guess like discourse at different points in time for saying like Idris Elba didn't want to be a part of the MCU anymore. He comes back to do like little stuff like this, so it's cool. They would come back to like say what, like 5 words in
Yeah,
this episode. So
he had very few lines, but still, it was just so great that he was there, I thought.
yeah, I enjoyed that. So going into the last 2 episodes between tomorrow and the day after. So tomorrow we'll have what if the Avengers assembled in 1602. What are you looking forward to tomorrow that will have?
So tomorrow, Mark, I'm really wondering if we're going to get a continuation of the Kohori storyline, that she's going to be in that episode with, because since the way it ended, where, she's kind of taking out the Queen of Spain. I don't know. I wondered. Or maybe it's going to be something completely different. But still, I think the title is fantastic, and I really can't wait.
Yeah, they released a clip from tomorrow's episode, which I thought was interesting, which gives us some answers about, because people thought maybe the one person that could have been Captain Britain, but it seems like it is definitely Steve Rogers, but it is Rogers Hood, as we can see in that clip. And in that little clip that they released, it's also Loki talking about Shakespeare's Iago, which it's funny that Loki would be talking about Iago. But yeah. So that clip was cool to see. I'm looking forward to that. I'll probably end up, and also part of like the Watcher's 9 days like Advent kind of thing. They released a code in there too, so that you could read the first issue of Neil Gaiman's 1602 if you haven't read it before too. So if people are following along with the What If social content, you can find that there and check that out and be able to read a little bit of what tomorrow's episode will be influenced on. And then the finale is going to be that What If Strange Supreme intervened. And if anything, I think Kohorti definitely is going to show up in that episode.
She's going to show up in that one since Doctor Strange showed up right at the end of, or in hers too. So anyway,
but yeah, I am definitely looking forward to the next 2 episodes we have, because it seems like these next 2 are definitely going to be like the culmination of everything we've had before.
Yeah.
And kind of like that, like 1-2 punch of like what we got last in the first season with, like what if Ultron won, and then what if the Watcher broke his vow. In that, so that should be some interesting stuff that's going to be coming up. But for everyone that's listening, or watching, once these are all put together as an audio podcast all together, they'll be over at our website, which is animationfascination.net. And so it'll be kind of fun at that point, because you'll be able to hear our look to the future, and then about maybe 5 minutes later hear us be like, oh, okay, that didn't happen. So I think that'll be an interesting thing for people that didn't watch these videos, when they listen to the audio in context of back to back to back like that, how that'll be. So you can look forward to that. But yeah, thank you for everyone that joined us again today. But for myself, I am Mark Herbert, and for my friend Stanford Clark over here, thank you for joining us, and we'll be back again with the next episode, the penultimate episode, tomorrow. So we'll see you then. Bye bye.